Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the first 2 rounds of a 3-round mock draft conducted by Mel Kiper, Matt Miller, Jordan Reid, and Field Yates. They're going to alternate picks here. We're going to mostly pay attention to the offensive players here, but if I note something that's a non-fantasy player, I'll make mention of it if I really like it or really don't like it. Taking a look first overall to nobody's surprise, you have Mendoza going to the Raiders. I really like the addition of Kirk Cousins. Let Mendoza sit right away. I wish all rookie quarterbacks had that opportunity. I like the improvement of the offensive line with Linderbaum. They already have 2 solid offensive tackles. You have Brock Bowers there. Now, having Jack Besh and Trey Tucker as your either one arguably as your wide receiver 1 does worry me. I really would hope that they invest in wide receiver in this draft. But nonetheless, I really like that he's not going to have to start. I like the upgrade with Kubiak's scheme. The wide zone play action, I really think is going to fit Mendoza. I think it'll fit Genty as well. And I think they'll actually have the offensive line to employ this scheme. Then we have Reese, kind of versatile off-ball / edge going to the Jets. Has a lot of developing to do, but definitely a lot of upside. And so that is the ultimate upside pick for them, in my opinion. Then you have Maui Noah. He can be opposite of Paris Johnson at tackle for the Cardinals, set up the team better for when they potentially get a quarterback next year. I really like that for them. Then you have David Bailey going to the Titans, a nice edge to go opposite of Simmons. That could make their defensive line even more scary. Now, our next fantasy pick, we have Jeremiah Love going to the Giants. So I really like his fit in the offense. I think that, having Jackson Dart at the helm at quarterback, potentially Cam Scadaboo coming back a little slow from injury, I think could be a nice change of pace back for Jeremiah Love, but give Love the majority of the touches, obviously. You have Malik Neighbors coming back from injury, but when in full health, this could be a pretty good offense with the addition of Jeremiah Love. I would hope that they would add wide receiver potentially, because after Neighbors, it gets pretty scary for them. But I also just don't like the value of taking wide receivers in this class with the top 5 pick. Speaking of almost being a top 5 pick, we have Mekhi Lemon. I've actually come around to Mekhi Lemon as being my wide receiver 1 of this class. So I do agree with the order in which these guys are going to be picked, at least as far as Lemon being first. He's really dynamic with the ball in his hands, can be used as a Z. I do think he can play outside. I've seen people say he's a slot only. I disagree. I don't think he's going to be your X, but I do think that he can be a flanker for you. I think he can be Z. I think he can do basically everything but X at a proficient level. So as far as the landing spot for fantasy, not ideal. You're not going to have a quarterback until at least next year. But target competition, you have Jerry Jeudy there. That's really not much of a worry to me. Harold Fannin is a very good player. I think he and Mekhi Lemon would easily lead this team in targets. Caleb Downs to the Commanders. I like the pick for them. They've been kind of mocked to get Jeremiah Love, but obviously in this mock draft, he goes to the Giants at 5, so he's not available for them. I've also seen Carnell Tate at times here. Moving on, Sonny Styles to the Saints. They could really use linebackers, so that makes a ton of sense. Now, Mel Kiper's making all the fire picks right now. He's choosing all the fantasy players. So he goes Sadiq to the Chiefs. So yeah, as they mentioned, Travis Kelce is going to be 37 this year. Slowing down as a player, still shows flashes of being the elite guy, but that's just not going to last forever. Mahomes, we don't know if he's going to be available for the beginning of the season, but from a dynasty perspective, this is fantastic. Being paired with Andy Reid, they have the speed of Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice was just declared innocent, essentially, so he's not going to have any repercussions from the league. I really like his fit here. I think he could be used in the screen game quite a bit and get the ball on jet sweeps, be used on crossers, shallow crosses. I think he would be a fantastic fit here, and this is pretty much the dream landing spot. Then Delane, Bengals need everything defense, basically, so a good cornerback from LSU would be great for them. And then we have Carnell Tate. So I think, he's a wide receiver too. I think he's a really good player. I'd be absolutely surprised if he is a bust. It's a little bit rich as far as overall draft capital, in my opinion. I think he's kind of like a, T. Higgins, George Pickens type, but without the yak ability. Better versus man and press than he is against zone, but I think he's perfectly adequate against zone. He would easily be their wide receiver 1, though. I do like Malik Willis, because one thing with Carnell Tate is I think he's going to be probably used as a boundary player. And so for that, you would need to have a quarterback, or at least to be successful, you would want a quarterback with decent arm talent, but more importantly, ball placement and accuracy down the field. I do think you get that with Malik Willis. Now, it was admittedly a small sample size, but he was one of the best deep ball quarterbacks in the NFL last year. It was insane. And so I think that pairing potentially could be good for Tate, not only because he would obviously have a very good target share, but I do think that Malik Willis has the potential to be the kind of quarterback that he needs with, deep ball accuracy, so it can make those chunk gains down the field. Then we have Ruben Bain, kind of falls down here to the Cowboys. Really short arms, but tremendous power. If you're going to bet on an outlier, I think this is the kind of player that you would bet on because of how ridiculously powerful he is. Now, we have Jordan Tyson going 13 to the Rams. Once again, I think these guys, all the wide receivers, I think, are going to be gone relatively quickly. So with him going to the Rams, you would have, there's the potential, obviously, for them to move Davante Adams. Now, if they don't, Adams is probably generally going to be their X. He's not really somebody you kind of put in motion a ton. But you could have Nakua and Jordan Tyson playing, slot and Z for them, being put in motion, given free releases. This would be a dream for Jordan Tyson as far as offensive play calling goes. For the long term, obviously Stafford is kind of getting on his last leg, so they potentially would need to get a successor eventually. But he would land with Sean McVay, so that part would be good, but he would probably be the wide receiver 3 if they don't trade Davante Adams. If they do trade Davante Adams, I do think Puka sees more work at X, but obviously they'll move him around from time to time, potentially do some condensed splits. But I just don't think Tyson is probably going to be their X. I think he would be more of a Z or a slot flanker type. Then the Ravens go Jermon McCoy. I like that pick for them. They have Nate Wiggins, so they could use a corner opposite him as Marlon Humphrey ages out. Keem Mesidor to the Buccaneers, 25-year-old rookie. If you're looking to contend, like they say here, that makes sense. But, by the end of his rookie deal, is going to be 29 years old, 30 potentially. So, yeah, if you're going to select this guy who is very talented, you need to win right now. Now, moving on to the Jets at 16, they take Omar Cooper. I actually like this pick a lot. So, I comped him to kind of like a Deebo Samuel type of player. Somebody that is really good after the catch, really, really strong hands, a pretty decent and underrated route runner. I do like the value here of getting the wide receiver 4 with the best yak ability for fantasy. Now, unfortunately, with the Jets, you have elite target competition with Garrett Wilson. You also have no quarterback. But seeing as they have 3 picks next year in 2027 in the first round, I would highly suspect they get quarterback next year. So while for fantasy, it would be an initial kind of depressing thing if you were expecting production, in my opinion, I do think for the long term that could really work out, especially if they fire Aaron Glenn and get an offensive-minded play-calling head coach. Freeling, I think he could play left tackle for them, potentially right tackle if they want to flip Sewell. Thieneman to the Vikings, replacing Harrison Smith. That makes sense. Very athletic safety for them with kind of box and center field ability, in my opinion. Spencer Fano, I think he could play tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Beef up that offensive line, get the running game continuously growing. We'll see what, potentially Jonathan Brooks looks like, but we already know what we get from Chuba. Cowboys going Zion Young. I'd been seeing him as a second-round pick for quite some time, but he's starting to creep up into the late first round, so that kind of makes sense. Steelers select guard. I've seen them usually mocked for a wide receiver, but they did just get Michael Pittman Jr., so they could potentially just roll with Metcalf and Pittman and then look to beef up the offensive line. Falk going to out of Auburn, going to the Chargers. Kind of a guy that has all the tools, but just the production wasn't particularly there. But, with Khalil Mack aging out, that makes sense for them. Offensive tackle for the Eagles, always good to continuously beef up your offensive line, especially if you want to have that identity as a power running team. Proctor to the Browns, I like that for them. They could definitely beef up their offensive line. For a while, it had been very good, but the play had started slipping, especially this past season. And they've dealt with injury after injury after injury on the offensive line. The Bears go Peter Woods out of Clemson. They definitely need a run stopper in the middle. They did improve slightly down the stretch this past season, but that was one of their biggest weaknesses. I mean, Genty, for instance, ran all over them last year. I don't really think they need anything on the offensive side of the ball for the most part as far as early picks go. Their defense is definitely the side in which needs addressing. We have the Bills selecting cornerback Avion Terrell out of Clemson. They could definitely use help there. All right, Casey Concepcion going to the 49ers. Really like the pairing with Brock Purdy at quarterback. He's more of a timing, kind of a trust thrower over the middle of the field. I think Concepcion gets the separation ability necessary. I know that Matt Harmon is incredibly high on him. So with the fit in the offense, with Pearsall kind of not really being dependable, George Kittle coming back from injury, I really think that he has the potential to just take over as wide receiver 1 for them. And I think that Kyle Shanahan will get him in space. And so I think that'd be a very good fit for fantasy. And I think he would creep up draft boards much like Sadiq. Okay, so the Texans go defensive tackle. I mean, at some point, don't you guys have to do anything to help CJ Stroud in the offense? It seems like all they do is pick defense over and over and over again while trading away all their best offensive linemen. I know they addressed some offensive line in the offseason, but it would just be depressing if I was a Texans fan. And we have the best defense ever that just continuously gets better, but we don't ever address the offensive side of the ball. That's hyperbole, obviously, but still. The Chiefs taking Cisse, a cornerback out of North Carolina. That is the highest I think I've seen him go, but would make sense with them trading away Trey McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams. Then the Dolphins take Emmanuel McNeil Warren. They could definitely use safety. Jeff Hapley, obviously, the former Packers DC, being their head coach, definitely could make that the pick for them. Cassius Howell to the Patriots, an edge. Their defensive line, their run stopping especially, was really good when their defensive line was healthy this past season. I'd really hope that they would try to get Drake May some weapons, man. I mean, you signed Romeo Doubs. It's kind of uninspiring to me. He's fine. I would really have hoped you would either improve the offensive line for Drake May or at least get him an offensive weapon, but they'll take edge instead. Then you have R. Mason Thomas edge for the Seahawks. The defense just continuously gets better for them. Makes sense. Ty Simpson. So he falls to 33. So I've seen a lot of the times that he's going to potentially the Jets at 16, potentially to Pittsburgh in the early 20s, or even if somebody trades up into the early second round or late first round rather, for somebody like Ty Simpson. So if he falls to 33, I really like the value for the Jets. That'd be fantastic. Sit him for a minute, see what you got potentially later on in the season when you've lost a bunch of games, and see if he's potentially your guy of the future. I think that, and especially considering they have 3 first-round picks next year, there's really not a ton of downside in my opinion because they could just replace him easily. Then moving on further into the second round, TJ Parker out of Clemson to the Cardinals. Makes sense. Now, Denzel Boston going to the Titans at 35. This is one of I've seen 2 or 3 mock drafts recently where he slipped into the second round. Admittedly, though, the early second round, so at least he's not significantly falling. But man, I'd seen him in as early as the late teens, generally in the 20s though, in basically every mock draft up until recently. So if he does fall to the Titans here, I really like the fit with Cam Ward. Cam Ward, an absolutely fearless playmaker. I think that Denzel Boston is decent in scramble drill. I think he's more of your perimeter. I comped him to Cortland Sutton type of wide receiver. He'll definitely be their X, which I do think they are lacking in X, so that would make sense schematically for them. And I would like that for the long term. I mean, target competition, there isn't that much. Vegas Raiders go Christian Miller, D tackle, to help solidify the interior of their defensive line. CJ Allen fell a little bit to the New York Giants. They could definitely look to, they're going to prop him up next to Tremaine Edmonds. That's interesting. The Texans take guard here. That is a good pick for them. I would hope that they would take more offensive line. CJ Stroud has had a terrible time the past couple of seasons. Pregnon out of Oregon, guard, going to the Browns. They definitely need to continue to solidify that offensive line. So they've now taken tackle and guard. That's great for them. Blake Miller going to the Chiefs out of Clemson. I like that for them. Cincinnati Bengals, Zachariah Branch. Okay, so he's 5'9", 177. He's a really small guy. He's decent with the ball in his hands. I would really like the fit for him. Not as far as target competition. Obviously, having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the outside is going to command a lot of volume. But I do like that there's basically no chance you would ask him to play on the line of scrimmage, given you have two guys that can be an elite X receiver on the outside. Obviously, having Joe Burrow as your quarterback would be great. I think that the offensive efficiency would be great for Branch, and that I think he'd be efficient with the targets in which he's given. I just don't think the overall volume would be particularly great with the Bengals, but there's definitely worse landing spots, man. Saints take cornerback. Dolphins take offensive tackle. They could definitely use that. Jets take cornerback out of San Diego State, Chris Johnson, not the running back. They could definitely do that to help replace Sauce Gardner, as they mentioned. Rutledge out of the guard out of Georgia Tech going to the Ravens. They definitely need to improve the interior of their offensive line. They were struggled in short yardage situations all the time last year. It was very frustrating as a Ravens fan. Anthony Hill, linebacker out of Texas, going to the Buccaneers, man. So they had been, mocked Sonny Styles for the longest time before he destroyed the combine. So he probably won't be there by the time they pick. So it makes sense that they take linebacker here where there's better value. Malachi Lawrence going to the Indianapolis Colts, an edge. They could use him, pair him opposite of Latu. Then you have the Falcons taking Caleb Banks. So he's somebody who his draft stock has really fallen due to the injury. I think that'd be a good value if you could stay healthy. That'd be probably one of the better values because I think he's more of a late first round pick in terms of talent, but good value for them. Finally, Jadarian Price going to the Vikings. I would love this landing spot. Aaron Jones, as they mentioned, is 31. He's generally missed time the past couple of seasons. Not going to last forever. Jordan Mason, I also agree, probably isn't an RB1. I think he's kind of a solid change of pace, kind of power back if you want. But Jadarian Price, talented player, definitely my RB2 of this class. Going to the Vikings with KOC, basically they have everything except quarterback. They're going to try Kyler Murray. We'll see how that goes. I'm worried if I own any, which I don't actually happen to own any Vikings wide receivers in Dynasty, but I'd be really worried for Addison and Justin Jefferson with Kyler Murray at the helm this season. Even with KOC, he just can't use the middle of the field. You saw what it did to Marvin Harrison Jr., and then, with JJ McCarthy, maybe there's the chance that he improves, but I'm kind of fading some of the Vikings this season due to their projected quarterback play. Then we have Lions taking edge. We have the Panthers taking Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. He's a ball magnet. I mean, seriously, he turns the ball over at a ridiculous rate. That'd be a really good value pick, in my opinion. Defensive tackle going to the Packers. Chris Brazzell going to the Steelers. So interesting. So you'd have DK Metcalf, who would definitely be your X, good against press, good deep threat, good size. I think you'd have Pittman kind of as a power slot, and then you could have Brazzell as a potential vertical Z. Obviously, target competition would be pretty rough for him, so for fantasy, I really wouldn't like this at all, on top of them not having a quarterback. I mean, long-term at least, maybe have Aaron Rodgers come back again, but would not be a good spot for him in fantasy in any way, shape, or form. So for a real-life pick, I would love this. I think him going at 53 is a really good value for them. I'm much higher on Brazzell than most people are, though, but for fantasy and for his sake, I don't like the landing spot. Jeremy Bernard going to the Eagles here. So, if A.J. Brown's going to get traded, I don't really like Bernard as a game-breaking X. I think he could do it. I think he's better as a Z or a slot. You have Devontae Smith, who can win as an X, but preferably would also not be on the ball like that either. We'll see, though. If I were the Eagles and I was going to trade A.J. Brown, I would try to get somebody that is an X if possible. At least, you can definitely feel confident. But Jeremy Bernard's a solid receiver who doesn't have a ton of holes. He's just kind of the upside isn't the greatest, in my opinion. Chargers going guard. They really need to solidify the interior of their line. I mean, they lost both tackles last season. Their guard play was terrible. Absolute disaster as far as run blocking and pass blocking. Poor Justin Herbert. So they're looking to rectify that. Makes sense. Trotter, son of former NFL player Jeremiah Trotter going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like the pick for them. Bears pick edge. They definitely need defensive line help, so it makes sense with them taking multiple defensive linemen with their first couple picks here. Offensive tackle for the 49ers. I mean, Trent Williams isn't going to last forever, like they are mentioning, so that makes a lot of sense. Linebacker Golday going to the Texans. Once again, they just continue to improve their defense at the expense of their offense. Very unfortunate for the offensive side of the ball for them. The Bears take a linebacker / safety hybrid, Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh. They could definitely use that. They lost Edmonds. They lost basically all of their safeties. They did get Kobe from Seattle, so that does make sense that they could potentially look to invest more draft capital into safety or linebacker potentially. D'Angelo Pons, cornerback out of Indiana, going to the Rams. Really good value pick. He's kind of smaller, but I really like the talent. Eli Stowers, I love this pick for the Broncos, man, and I love this pick for fantasy. If he gets this draft capital, he needs to shoot up boards, man. So he's kind of a move tight end. They mentioned the Joker role. I do think he could be the Joker for them. I don't think Harvey's going to end up being their Joker. But really good skill set. I comped him to kind of a Harold Fannin type of player in terms of how you would utilize him and some of the skills he possesses. He's a better athlete than Fannin, though. But I would love this landing spot. You have Bo Nix there. You don't have a ton of elite. I mean, you have Jalen Waddle, who's I think a solid wide receiver who should command a decent amount of volume, and Sutton kind of aging out. So the volume wouldn't be necessarily the best. I think he'd probably be at best their third option in the offense, but I do love the long-term fit from a dynasty perspective, being connected to Sean Payton and Bo Nix. And I do think he's a really good player. Edge for the Patriots here, and cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks. So a couple of interesting picks here. Taking a look at some of the elite guys once again before we wrap it up here. So we have, once again, Mendoza going to the Raiders. I like that he can sit for a while. I like that he's going to have an upgraded offensive line. They have a good schemer in Kubiak. They have Genti to run the football with in a wide zone. They have, Bowers there. I do think they should look to upgrade at wide receiver. But overall, really good landing spot in my opinion. Once again, we have Jeremiah Love going to the Titans, to the Giants rather. So, Scattaboo there coming back from injury, I think could be a change of pace back while Jeremiah Love gets most of the work. I like the fit. You have Jackson Dart at quarterback. You have Neighbors once he comes back from injury. I think that the offense could be pretty good. Mekhi Lemon going to the Browns should get a ton of target opportunity, but the quarterback play is absolutely abysmal. So could kind of work like a Neighbors type situation, with the Giants, where his quarterback play was atrocious. There was no one else around him, but he's just so talented that it worked out anyways. And I do think Lemon's the same type of player in a way, in that he doesn't need to, he's not like Carnell Tate, where if you're going to play him on the outside, you need a quarterback with the arm talent and the ability to get him the football down the field. You can give him these short area targets that don't require elite quarterback play. Great in the screen game as well. Take a look at a couple more. Once again, Sadiq going to the Chiefs, dream landing spot. I think he'd be that you couldn't even, I don't know what you could argue would be a better spot, to be honest with you. Replacing Travis Kelce, potentially learn a thing or two from him. He's kind of more of a projection being Sadiq. So with the athleticism that he has shown us, along with potentially learning from Travis Kelce, being connected to Mahomes, that'd be fantastic. Carnell Tate going to the Dolphins once again. He would be their wide receiver one definitively. I think he's more of a wide receiver two, but he would definitely be their one. I would like the landing spot though, as far as being connected, because I think he's more of a boundary player, so he needs kind of somebody that can get the ball to him down the field with good accuracy and arm talent. I think Malik Willis has that ability. I think he has a really good deep ball, one of the better deep balls in the league, albeit it was a small sample size once again. But I would love the fit for him in fantasy, given that he would get a ton of target volume and would have a quarterback that would help him maximize his talents. He's just not great after the catch. Same thing with Jordan Tyson, not particularly great after the catch. But short term, if they traded away Devontae Adams, I would like this a lot more for him, being connected to Stafford and Sean McVay. You just got to hope they get a successor for Stafford at quarterback. But I do trust Sean McVay as much as anybody. So, with Tyson, at least if they do keep Adams, he wouldn't have to be an X for them. I think Adams would generally stay at X while you'd have Puka and Tyson moving around in motion all over the place. Not really much of a yak guy. Another reason I've started to put Lemon over him as my wide receiver 1 of this class, but decent landing spot. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Once again, thank you to my Patreon members. Thank you for your support. Without your support, this wouldn't be possible. With that being said, if you liked the video, please like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. Do you have any notes from this? Let me know below in the comment section. With that being said, though, thanks guys and have a good day.